Evolution attracts us. As characters evolve through stories, our understanding of the story evolves with them. The changes can be subtle or obvious, but they are at the core of successful storytelling. How do writers evolve characters? How does genre affect that evolution? Today our panel discusses the evolution of characters across the series and offers their insight into the process. In the spirit of giving, C.L. Cannon will share some books you might like if you're a fan of How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Meghan Quinn. As the holiday spirit strikes us, we let you know all the goodness coming up this week in our Go-Indie Minute. And we have more gifts for you when we have the panel read excerpts from their work in the Epilogue. So get out the character sheet and an eraser, change your level from 1 to 2. It's time for another evolutionary episode of This Week in Indies with your host, S.M. Hillman. Happy holidays, everyone. Today is the last week in Indies for 2025. Next weekend will be our 2025 wrap-up show. But this week, we talked about character evolution across the series. As each panelist introduces themselves, I want them to tell us about their favorite, or maybe least favorite, character evolution. So a little bookkeeping before we go. We are missing one person today, so StreamYard sort of makes that weird. So Ben is in Tiffany's book, but Ben's book is visible below. And Ben, start us off.
Sure. Hi, I am urban fantasy author and audiobook narrator Ben Shankman. I have my first series, The Devil You Know, and what my least favorite character development, maybe we can call it a trope. I really dislike it when people take strong characters and decide that they need to be really, really weak for no good reason in the middle of a series.
Do you have an example of that you particularly loathe?
I actually, I'm going to use a strong word. I despise the character evolution of the main character in The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, because she's portrayed as being incredibly strong and yet continuously makes the dumbest possible mistakes. So yeah, that.
Gotcha. Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
Bob, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm Bob Magoo. I am best known as the author of the Jubal County Saga, which is a series of books about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction. So I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to flip the coin and do my favorite. And my favorite series of all time is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. And kind of the arc of Croker over that series is one of my favorite depictions. He starts out very much, he starts out as an analyst, kind of this quasi officer of sorts, but not really. And then over the series, spoilers, he becomes like, he eventually becomes the captain and all these other roles, and actually shifts into, I'm not going to give the big spoiler away, but like where he winds up is in a wildly different place than where he started. And I think it was very well done. And it's neat because for those who aren't familiar, The Black Company is told from the perspective of the analyst. It is the analyst who's recording the story of this mercenary unit over time. And Croker starts out as the analyst for the first few books, but when he shifts into another role where he's no longer the analyst, someone else is now writing these books. And so you start seeing, and every narrator is unreliable in their own way. And so you actually see a little bit of more like, this is what Croker's like from the viewpoint of someone else. It's really neat and really well done, I think. And I had problems with Poppy War, but for a different reason. Poppy War is the second book that, like, in the same window of time where I got promised like better Harry Potter and then get like rug pulled halfway through. Like the person who pitched me the Poppy War was like, oh, it kind of starts out as like a more of a Asian influenced, magical school Harry Potter-esque thing. And then halfway through, it turns into, kind of a retelling of, the rape of Nanking, which is heavy. And then the magicians, I was told, oh, it's like if Harry Potter went to college. It's like, cool. Yes, that sounds, grown up Harry Potter that doesn't send money to her. Love that. And then halfway through, I find out this is really more Narnia for adults than Harry Potter for adults. And everyone's whiny, and I didn't like it.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Understood. Yeah. And no, the Black Company, I love Croker. And it's interesting that not only does that character evolve, but the role of the analyst to the chronicler, right? That evolves as well. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And Black Company fans, we're about to be eating good. Glenn has finished like 3 more books in the series, and they're going to start coming out next year, I think. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good news.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Bob. And SG Tosh.
Hello, I'm SG Tosh. I'm an urban fantasy and contemporary fantasy author from Las Vegas. You've also seen me on Hit the Dice multiple times, where I play mostly with the Cryptid Capture Corps and other games. And I have so much in response to all of this already before I even get my own opinions in here about my least favorites. I've been told to read Black Company multiple times by multiple people. My husband has it. I haven't started it yet, but now that I know there's more books coming, I'm a series reader. So I'm gonna have to jump in on that. And then The Magicians, I literally have all 3 books right over there. But I've only made it through the first one because of everything you said. I just couldn't. Like, there's so many other books out there that are not full of whiny, I guess, 20-somethings that have amazing powers and just should be happy. But for me personally, I have 2. And the reason I have 2 is because one is a TV show and one is a book/TV show. And the TV show is the first TV show is the one that came up in my brain right away. And it was How I Met Your Mother. And it's the character of Robin, who turns into an absolute nightmare by the end of the season, just mean. And like, she starts off as this, kind of manic pixie girl a little bit, which is sort of annoying, but she also is like fun and you would want to hang out and be friends with her. And then by the end of the season, she's just like, I don't know, just literally there to try to ruin everyone's lives. I don't really know what happened. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that whole show near the end. But that was particularly disappointing. And then as far as books go, I read the Southern Vampire series, mystery series, before I watched True Blood, which is, the show that was based on the books, or the book, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And Sookie, I was okay with. She stays pretty constant throughout the series, in the books anyway. But the character of Bill, just like, he's such a main focus and then just completely disappears and kind of shows up for a minute near the end. And then it just like it's like she didn't know what to do with him. And she just kind of shoved him off in favor of like less interesting male main characters. And I feel like that's another, again, like the series had a lot of problems outside of that the later on you go, which feels kind of like maybe something that's a problem when series get really, really late in, like 10, 12 books in. You just start running out of ideas, it feels like. So that's me.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So Ben, we're going to start with you. Lead us off here. When you're looking to evolve one of your characters, where does it begin for you, and along the way, can you talk about the process a little bit, right? Along the way, where you have an idea for a character, you write the book, and then you're young to the next book, and maybe it's not, maybe that changes as well. I don't know. It might not for you, but
that is such a big question. I'm happy to answer it. So the joking but not joking answer, it's like funny, haha, but no, really. A lot of it starts with what kind of traumatic experiences the character has had, compared to the core of their being. So when I write a character, I like to think about archetypes a lot. So in my first series, The Devil You Know, that starts with my boss is the devil. We've got Nick, who is a down on his luck barista. But as an archetype, he's the quasi reluctant main character, like half competent. And then the evolution is about how he responds to the things in his life around him, how that changes, but then also like the stuff that happens to him. And then especially because if we're writing good fiction, a lot of the times our characters are going to go through some stuff, just to call back to the Poppy War. Maybe not as heavy as that, because that series is more depressing than anyone warns anyone about. But we're not kind to our characters because the phrase is kill your darlings, right? You want to make sure that your main characters suffer enough to make it interesting and give them growth. So that's theoretically where it happens. So once you're done with one book where you have this character that's gone through this arc and you get into the next book, then it's about looking at the core of them, who they are. At his core, though, Nick is a good person. Like, he is a good person who wants to do better, but he didn't have the resources to do it. So in the first book, he gets the resources to do it. So then in the second book, what happens after that? He gets those resources, but now how is his worldview challenged? How are his assumptions challenged? How are the people around him challenging the way that he operates? And I think when I look to how to grow a character and evolve them, I want to look at what is making them question things about themselves. And it doesn't mean that they have to change. Like, I mentioned the trope that I don't like, which is take a character and basically take a strong character and make them incompetent. You don't have to change the core of who the character is. Challenging someone at their core can often lead to just a strengthening of it, and you get to prove that this is who the character is and was the whole time, and it becomes kind of a moment of validation or affirmation. So it depends on what you want to do with it. That doesn't mean you can't have a character change their core beliefs, and some books are based entirely around that for entire arcs. But I have to say, when I look at how I'm going to evolve a character, it's going to center around what things I'm going to have them experience that are going to make them challenge the way they look at the world around them.
Right. And so, taking or sort of harking back to what you had mentioned about the Poppy War, how would you, we want to, like you said, we want to see the characters challenged, but like you said, we don't want to see them undercut either, right? Suddenly take away all the things that make them an interesting character. What sort of challenges would you like to see that sort of balance that, right? That challenge a character with some new information, maybe, but still let them be as competent as they were before.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about one of the. So I'm working on the second book in my new series, which is it's the Chronicles of Corbin Pierce, which is that book that the images of Let Sleeping Gods Lie. So the second book, so Corbin is basically an environmentalist that's really focused on indigenous spiritual flora and fauna and mythos and folklore. And that's really a strong part of him. And in the second book, I start talking about a concept that I introduced in the first book, which is the idea that it's kind of American Gods-esque without the being a horrible person, where the settlers brought their spirits with them. So the idea in Let Sleeping Gods Lie is that the European settlers brought the spiritual creatures with them, mostly unwillingly. They got dragged along for the ride. And Corbin is really kind of anti the, I think he refers to it at one point as the imports. And in the second book, I directly challenge that by introducing more depth to it. That is making Corbin challenge his own assumptions about these creatures and who they are and the dignity that they have or deserve compared to the way that he's just kind of treated them like an invasive species. So I like challenging that kind of way, but I don't take away. So the thing that I don't like about that particular main character in the Poppy War is I feel like the challenges were bumping up against just a fundamental change to the core of the main character's being, and that's more of a disservice to the character. So what I want to make sure that I do is I want to make sure that I challenge the assumptions and beliefs without immediately having the character feel like they're reacting from a different base,
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that. Bob, what about you? Taking a character from the start to their evolution. I know you have a character who has evolved over some books. So.
Yeah. So I kind of took the easy route on this because I started with a character at rock bottom. They're as low as they can get. Really, you can only go up from there. Any sort of progression is basically just going to have to lead to some character growth. But so kind of big picture, I think a lot of the big divide and like why genre fiction is so commonly like kind of dismissed by snooty folks is that genre fiction tends to be more plot focused than character focused, but I think especially when you get into urban fantasy, that kind of shifts. Like there is definitely a bit of plot, but because of so much of urban fantasy is first person, and they do tend to be series focused, character is much more important, a much more important element, I'd say. Like if doorstopper fantasy is 60% plot, 40% character, it's the inverse for urban fantasy. And so I sat down to the whole point of my series is character growth. I mean, that's it's called The Redemption of Howard Marsh. It's the name, it does what it says on the tin. The whole point of this series is Howard starts at rock bottom, drug addict, homeless, no job, really very few friends and family. Everyone's kind of turned their back on him. He's very much other in the community. And by the end of the series, which obviously I'm not there yet, he will have fixed that to a large degree. But memories are long in the South. He'll never not be other in the broader community, but he can at least will have fixed the relationships that matter to him, and more importantly, fixed himself, as it were. But when I was first starting out with this, before I realized just how much of a pantser I am, I had really kind of in depth mapped out the series, and one of the elements that I had on there, so it was like, this was kind of the big picture of like, okay, this book, this is kind of the main mythological element he's encountering. This is, the major character I need to I want to introduce. But then one of the elements I tracked on all these was like, what is something in this book that shows that he is on the road to improvement? And it was kind of tracked in two ways. One is like, what is something that he learns like magically to get better at that side? But then also is like, what is something that shows that he is becoming a better person? And I had mapped that out for a number of books, and then sat down to write them, and discovered a lot of books along the way. So I kind of that file still exists. I do go look at it occasionally to make sure I'm still hitting some of these things that I had set out to do. But at this point, it's I know the direction, I know where I need to be in every book. I just make a point to make sure I'm including elements that show that he is on the road to redemption, so that when I reach the end, it will feel real and earned, not just, oh well, you know what, time jump 7 years later, he's clean. Because people would be real upset at that, I think. So
Yeah, I think people, that it's the kind of series you want to go along for the journey. You don't want to just jump to the end and like, oh, okay, great, redemption, yay.
yeah.
Talk a little bit about too the how his environment evolves around him, or the other characters evolve around Howard Marsh.
So this is something that I never talk about. I only talk about it on shows like this. But a lot of times the environment that I'm describing on the page is a direct reflection of Howard Marsh's mood. So like if he's in a bad mood, he doesn't see all the beauty that's around him. He just sees the ugly things, like, oh, look at that ruined building. Oh, look, there's another ratty trailer. Oh, there's a pine forest. He hates pine forests. I hate pine forests, so he hates pine forests. And so he focuses on those kind of things. But when he's in a good mood, he tends to focus on things that look that are more visually pleasing. But then also part of that I'm trying to do is there is the undercurrent of this whole book is the county, Jubal County, is something has gone wrong in the county at the like metaphysical level. And so what's kind of going on behind the scenes without Marsh realizing it is he is working towards fixing what is wrong with the county. And the county is not a great place to live unless you really like poverty, and so part of it is fixing the metaphysical will allow the physical to kind of blossom and flourish as well. So there will be a kind of a parallel that as he improves, you will see the county improving around him, and the people that he encounters, you will see them kind of growing in their respective careers, or moving farther down their life path to however they would define success. So that has happened to a small degree in little dribs and drabs. I've been kind of like setting the pieces, but in the next 6-book arc, you'll really start to see as some of these folks that you've met, as they kind of come into their own through their influence on Marsh, and then his influence back onto them. So
cool, awesome, excellent. Thank you so much. You heard it here first, folks. There'll be a data center in Jubal County at some point.
You say that they are building a huge data center in one county north of the county that Jubal County is based on, and it's actually on the southern part of that county. So it's, if it was 20 miles south, it would be in Jubal County.
Oh, so. All right, yeah, you heard it here first, people. Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
SG, what about you?
Yeah, so going last, I've been sitting here thinking about this, and so I've had a little bit more time to kind of evaluate my process, such as it is. I'm also a pantser, so a lot of times the character development starts with like where they begin, who they are at the beginning, which is I usually get my character idea as the first thing that comes to me, my main character and maybe like the secondary hero. And then I know where they're going to end, and everything else is kind of, I have to sort of write through it. So it's a lot of sort of organic finding their development. But what I'm sort of realizing as I sit here thinking about, the 2 series I've written, Dead Mall, which stars the main character is a 16-year-old girl and her best friend, and then her bosses eventually. And then Death by Misadventure, which is a woman in her 30s. And then the new book, which stars a Greek monster, female monster. I'm looking for sort of similarities about where they all start. And they all kind of start in places, unlike Bob, whose character is at rock bottom. They are all in sort of like, they're safe. They have a house. They have, arguably stuff to eat in varying degrees. And they're fine. Like they think they're fine at the beginning, and Whether or not the audience agrees with that is, probably up for some debate depending on how you're reading the book. But then usually something happens, every time something happens, either mystical or unfortunate or both, that quickly throws them out of their status quo, and then they have to deal with it. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, that's a pretty basic inciting incident and like kicking off a story, but it works for a reason. So that's where I start. And then as far as like making sure they develop in a way that feels normal, a lot of it happens for me in the editing process, because I will, like right now I'm working on first in series, and I'm already seeing like, this feels too easy. She's got this too easy. Things are happening that, she's not really having to earn what's going on right now. So it's a question of, I just did a presentation on using tabletop role-playing game mechanics on writing books. So to put it in those terms, you have to make sure that like the challenge rating gets higher as the story goes on, and as they grow, as they level up. And I think that's probably part of what my colleagues here are getting at, is like, if your character is leveling down as the story goes on, that feels really bad. Like, you don't want to knock your character down levels unless there's a really good reason, unless something really bad happens and they are kind of stripped of it. But if it's just happening because you can't figure out how to raise the challenge rating, that feels lame, and you gotta work a little harder on that.
Do you feel like, and to kind of talk a little bit about, in gaming terms again, do you feel like the characters need a quote unquote boss battle at the end of every book to evolve, to level up, or is it possible to level up without that kind of thing?
I think the safe answer there is yes. You do need a boss battle at the end of every episode or every book or every installment. Mostly because I think, in my genre, in urban fantasy, I think people expect it. You need something to kind of capstone the like pinnacle of their success, and to really drive home like, yes, you are different now. I think if you're taking a more like subdued or literary approach, those boss battles don't need to be epic scale, but it should feel epic scale to the character, even if it's, an argument with their mom, if that makes sense, like in the narrative, and that's your big boss battle, and that's a big deal to your character, then I think that's fine. But yeah, I guess I'll say it that way, is it doesn't have to be like an apocalyptic level boss battle, but it should feel big to your character.
Awesome. Thank you. Actually, let's go ahead and see some of our comments from the people who are here. As always, from GoOndy now, send a star to your hosts and producers, know how much you appreciate us. At the end of the season, we will be giving out a gift card. One lucky winner will get $25 Amazon gift, $25 to Bandcamp gift card, go to the best indie music, or $25 drive-through gift card to the best in indie gaming. A GoOndy Now t-shirt or mug, and a selection of ebooks from our guests and hosts. Some of our comments, AF saying hi. Hi, AF, how you doing? Bob breaking the fourth wall, thank you, because JD's not here.
Someone's got to pick up the slack.
Yeah. AF Stewart is with Bang, hates when characters do stupid things for no good reason. Yep. Agreed. Elias Saloro, hello. Renly Engel, hello, hi. Jorge Casillas, 68. Boo, I got it.
Okay.
And then Sunny kicking back to Jorge. Yep.
I bet it made sense in context.
Yeah.
Oh, she is.
She knows.
And AF again, don't get me started on How I Met Your Mother, especially finale, as I understand. I didn't really watch the show, so Bob is likes having stuff to eat, sure, for sure, and too much perhaps. Well, I mean, we'll see. So, SG, I want to start with you this time.
Yeah.
Genre, we brought up genre a couple times, but how do genre touchstones affect character evolution?
I'm like the wrong person to ask about this because I'm a pantser. To me, they play a role in sort of the final iteration of the book because of reader expectation. Like I said, they're expecting to see a big final boss battle in most genres, and certainly in urban fantasy. They're and just all I can do is go on my genre. So they're expecting that kind of stuff. They're expecting sort of the depending on the story, depending on a lot of cases, they might be expecting like the third act reversal, the second act reversal, where your character like suffers a defeat and dark night of the soul kind of stuff. Again, that's pretty generic for a lot of genres, but for me, all of that stuff comes in way later. It comes in after I've done it's after the first draft, it's after the first round of editing, which is pretty much like just writing the book because the first draft is such a mess. And then I do a second round of editing to kind of make sure about that character development. And then I'll look at sort of those genre beats and things like that. So for me, the evolution happens between the draft and the first round of revision. That's where I really can kind of see how the character is going to be moving through this series or through this book. And so, it plays a role, but it doesn't play a role in the actual initial development part of what the character is going through.
Gotcha. Thank you. Bob, what about you? How does genre play into it for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, writing the same genre plays in a lot of the kind of same ways, but so I'll speak to something a little different. I got lucky to sit down and have dinner with James S. Hunter, who writes a couple of very successful lit RPG series, and got to talk to him a lot about the success of what makes lit RPG so successful, and like progression fantasy as well. Like those are the two genres that have grown the most outside of romantasy, I guess you could say. Like and like by a large margin, like they're both intensely popular subgenres of fantasy these days. And in that, the whole point is I mean, the major difference is lit RPG, you see the numbers go up. And in progression fantasy, you don't see the numbers, but the numbers are getting bigger all the time, essentially. And the whole point of these series is that these characters are progressing in their ability. They may not necessarily be progressing as moving from bad person to better person or anything like that. But the primary focus is they are growing more successful in whatever game or magical system that they've found themselves in. And for that, and I think the rate at which those genres have exploded, both in just like number, but also quality, like the quality has definitely improved over the past few years, kind of speaks to the fact that there's just something in humans that we love seeing progression. And for a certain type of reader, there are a lot of folks that don't read genre fiction because they really care all about like more literary type character development, and it just doesn't appeal. They care less about plot. The book could be about nothing as long as the character shows internal growth or whatever. And then a lot of folks like me, I am all plot all the time. Like I don't care if like when I'm reading, I don't really care about the characters. I just want to know how the story goes. If the character grows along the way, cool. That's a nice to have, not a need to have. I'm all plot. But for a lot of people, it is just that character growth is what interests them the most. And so people have discovered how to write to cater to that itch, and it clearly it's working very well, very well. A lot of folks getting quite wealthy from out of nowhere doing this, and I love it for them. I wish that was the genre I wrote, but got to be me. So but yeah, I mean, there is absolutely the tropes and expectations of genre absolutely influence the type of character growth you're going to have if you want to hit reader expectations. And I mean, if you're a good enough writer, you can ignore all tropes, ignore all expectations. You can get away with anything. But most folks are not that good of a writer. So writing to at least some of the tropes so that people coming into it aren't disappointed, is always a recipe for success, I feel.
Awesome. Thank you. Ben, genre and idiom, how does it affect character evolution?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because what Bob said earlier about urban fantasy, and by the way, I love that this is an urban/contemporary panel. Just it ended up that way.
Yeah, me too.
But urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy being so much more character focused is part of, I think, what the genre influences when it comes to character development, in that people expect or even demand like really messy characters. If your character is too perfect, they're not going to get the kind of reader following that the messiest dumpster fire characters that some people tend to write do. Like the more human, the more relatable, the more because it's first person, the more that they can really like marinate inside the brain of your main character, I think is gonna influence how it is that we make those characters evolve. So while we have, and I have to break some kind of wall for a second, in that I enjoy Dungeon Crawler Carl. So every time I hear you say boss battle SG, I hear the audiobook in my head with the boss battle. So I think for genre expectations for urban fantasy, you get a lot more expectation that there is actual character development that is independent of the more progression fantasy type getting stronger, like the cultivation theme that happens when the character is going from weak to strong and all of that. But I think urban fantasy demands a lot more actual interpersonal and personal development when it comes to character evolution than other genres do. And maybe that's because in some ways, like, our settings are partially defined because they are usually real or quasi-real places that exist. So we get to focus so much more on the development of the people as the backdrop, so the people around them. But also, I love the fact that urban fantasy often tells very human stories, and we, in the genre, are allowed to take a messy character and make them better, different, evolved, unevolved, and the readers get to see how that goes. So I really think like the more, because urban fantasy is also one of my favorite genres to read, not just write. And if I find character behavior and evolution to be just extremely unrealistic, I am less likely to enjoy the book from a genre perspective. So yeah, I think that's probably sums it up for me.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much. We are going to take a quick break now for Sean to be the worst producer possible while also being a middling host. Oh, here we go. And it's time for our Indie Connection, where CL Cannon will share some books you might like if you are a fan of How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Meghan Quinn.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Meghan Quinn. The first book I have for you is called Elf Against the Wall by Alina Jacobs. When you kiss your perfect boyfriend under the mistletoe, only for your cousin to scream to the family that you stole her man, Christmas is over. In my defense, I didn't know my boss, buckle up because this is messy, was my cousin's newly minted and totally lying fiancé. I thought he was the nutcracker prince come to finally show my family that I, too, was worthy of putting the star atop the Christmas tree. I was so wrong. Now my entire family thinks I'm a ho-ho-ho. I'm at the top of the naughty list. Not in a fun, elf-on-the-shelf way, but rather in a snide comments at brunch and sitting at the kids' table kind of way. I have to clear my name, or Christmas is ruined again. What better way than to blackmail my family's #1 sworn enemy? Anderson Winter is this desperate elf's last hope. 6'5", ethically challenged, white washboard abs, and a death wish. Anderson is the perfect weapon to expose my ex and help me get back in my family's good graces. That is, until the weapon massively backfires. And no, not like that. Anderson goes full Nightmare Before Christmas and shows up at my family's annual holiday party and nothing but tattoos and a motorcycle helmet and tells everyone we're dating. Yep, that kicks me off the naughty list and sends me straight to the Grinch's garbage dump. Now I'm chained to a motorcycle-riding bad elf with terrible morals and an even worse attitude. One who sticks his hand down my shirt in the middle of my parents' posh country club and tells me to ride him like I do his bike. When I slap him, he just smirks and asks if I fluff my marshmallows while fantasizing about betraying my family with him. As if. No way am I sleeping with the man my entire family hates. Because that won't just ruin Christmas. It'll ruin the rest of my life. And the second book I have for you is called Single All the Way by Kate Watson. When a secret billionaire and his obnoxiously pretty upstairs neighbor get stuck together on an elevator, their sparks could light a Christmas tree. Juliet. I go through crushes faster than a kid goes through presents on Christmas morning. But when I crash into my annoyingly hot nemesis and we get stuck in the elevator during a blackout, the last thing I expect is to develop feelings for him. Nate Cruz is opinionated, a stickler for justice, talks with his hands, and is the space heater keeping me safe while we're stuck on this freezing metal box. He's also the first person to ever push past my defense mechanisms and see me as more than the girl who messes up everything that my family sees. And when the blackout ends and we're back in the real world, he's the first person to ever stand up to my family for me. Now that I've fallen for Nate, I'm determined not to mess things up with him, and I know exactly how. We'll fake date to get through the holidays, because a fake relationship can't leave me brokenhearted on Christmas, right? Nate. Juliet Ship is the loudest, most obnoxiously pretty upstairs neighbor in the world. But after 6 hours on an elevator with her, I'm fighting feelings deeper than I'm willing to admit. And after the power's restored and she manages to drag me to my apartment and give me my insulin shots, I'm all in. When Jules suggests I come to her identical twin's wedding as her fake date, I agree, but only if she comes to my ultra-ambitious parents' holiday party as my real one. Because I know the truth she's too scared to admit. She isn't faking. And I'll do everything I can to help her realize it. All I want for Christmas is Jules. The third book I have for you is called Christmas in Spite of You by K.C. Mills. After pumping her hard-earned savings into a business plan that doesn't pan out, Noel Anderson is left financially strapped and needs a way to earn money to stay afloat. She decides to rent her apartment as an Airbnb for the Christmas holidays while visiting her family for Christmas. What she didn't plan on was coming down ill and having to cancel the trip. Canton Joseph is on the cusp of securing a lucrative business deal. In order to get a one-up on his competition, he rents an Airbnb in the same apartment complex where his potential client resides. He's surprised when he shows up, and the owner of the Airbnb not only wants to cancel the reservation, but is still occupying the space. With great reluctance, Noel and Canton agree to cohabitate for 1 week. Noel attempts to stay out of Canton's way, but they undoubtedly cross paths, causing friction between them. They immediately clash on everything, most notably with their views on the holidays. Noel is determined to have a very merry Christmas despite her temporary housemate, which is a source of Canton's irritation. Eventually, the two begin to soften towards each other, and Canton learns to view things through Noel's eyes. Will the holiday magic fizzle, or will these two spark a connection they didn't realize they needed? And the last book I have for you is called Scrooge and the Girls Next Door by Melanie Jacobson. When the sunniest woman in Creekville buys the house next to the grumpiest man on the street, sparks fly, and not just because she keeps blowing his fuses. 26-year-old Paige Redmond, single mom and go-getter, can't wait to give her daughter Evie the Christmas of her dreams. Nothing can get in Paige's way, not even her newly purchased fixer-upper cottage needing way more fixing than she planned. Paige tackles the holiday with Clark Griswold's spirit, amusing the entire town, except for her humbug next-door neighbor, the grumpy but deliciously handsome Professor Henry Hill. With the help of colorful friends and found family, plus a feral cat and a pancake snowman, Paige and Evie wage a campaign to cure the cranky professor of his Christmas blues. When Paige's feelings for Henry wind up as tangled as her Christmas lights, there's something more than Christmas spirit on the line. Will Henry pull the plug on their first solo Christmas, or can Paige and Evie convince the town's biggest Scrooge to open his gringy heart to the holiday and to them? I think that's all for me this season on the Indie Connection. I will see you next year. Bye!
Absolutely. CL Cannon, thank you. Happy holidays, CL, and thank you for always giving us those great indie connections.
And I'm going to quickly shout out a friend of Go Indie Now, Rosie Potter. She just signed a book deal for her Christmas romance book to come out. So that just got announced in like Publishers Weekly this week, in fact. So
Cool.
excited for her.
Yay.
So
Awesome. That's excellent. Oh, we love to hear that.
Mhm.
The last thing I wanted to talk about, again, we always talk about, sorry, let me poke my eye out. We always talk about advice for the new writer. And I want to talk a little bit about pacing. How, when we think of evolution, fast, slow, just right, what is the Goldilocks zone for pacing, in your opinion, right, for you as a writer? And anybody can grab that.
I'll start. I have a good tip that I got from Michael J. Sullivan. He teaches a lot of not Michael J. Sullivan. Michael Stackpole. Michael Stackpole. He teaches a lot of writers' workshops at DragonCon, and when I was getting started, I went to a lot of them. And one of them that he teaches is how to write a series. And a great tip that he gave that I've really taken to heart is you need to, at some point, you need to have what he called an away game. And that is where in a trilogy, not as important. But like if you're doing a, 6, 10, 12, 18 book series, you're going to be with this character so much for so long in the same places that you need to have he recommended like every third or fourth book, you send them outside of their comfort zone, which typically means send them to like another city, other state, something like that. So they are forced. It's a chance for you to show that they are competent, even when they don't have their typical support network. And so that was something that I very consciously set out to do with my series. I just unfortunately pantsed my way into 5 books in the series before I had my away game. But book 6 takes place entirely in Mississippi because I wanted to show that where we're at, this is maybe not something that Marsh could have pulled off right after book 1, but he has progressed enough at this point that him out in Mississippi, away from Jubal County, he is still able to overcome these challenges without calling up HD, calling up, spending time with Anna, just things like that. He's still able to achieve. And so that was a very valuable tip that I took to heart, and I think would be valuable to anyone who's looking at starting a series. And it doesn't have to be as crazy as going to another state, or going to another reality, which is an away game I have planned on the books. but it can be just a city over, or maybe it's not them that leaves, it's their support network that leaves. But putting them in a place where they aren't as comfortable without all the typical resources to really showcase just how much they have grown, not the group has grown.
I think it's interesting that we're a bunch of pantsers too. So it's an interesting question, because a lot of the time the answer is, I have to write it and see what happens.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I will say, so there's a difference between pacing a novel and pacing the evolution of a character over a series. And I'm gonna throw out a tool that I and a lot of other authors use, even for pantsers, which is using beat sheets. So SG mentioned the Dark Night of the Soul. That's a very important beat if you're talking about a traditional beat sheet, and that's been popularized by Save the Cat Writes a Novel. So even as a pantser, I really think you should probably have a beat sheet, because it will give you at least roughly when you want to hit different parts of the story, what the big beats are, because that's going to help drive the pacing of the book. Just to be clear, it isn't always going to hit the reader the way that you think it will either, though, because Let Sleeping Gods Lie, I wrote pretty much by the book, no pun intended, with a beat sheet. And I have very conflicting reports from readers saying that they struggled with the pacing, except no one can agree what that means. But the importance of a beat sheet is it tells you when you should probably be about halfway done with the story, or 3/4 of the way done with the story, which means you probably should have had your character meet some of those challenges by now, or solve one of the challenges by now. But then if you're talking about a series, the caution I'll tell you is don't do too much. Like, there is such a thing as doing too much when it comes to character development. If you're planning to have a long series, you can't have everything happen in the first 2 books. So have a beat sheet for the book itself. That's going to help you pace the book. For each of the books, what's your theme? What's the theme of that book? What is the goal as far as what is it that you want the character to learn or grow from? And have that be like the central thing that you're writing your story around happening. For a lot of us pantsers, we end up with the end in our head first, and then we have to write a book to get there. And so think about, like, what's that final image that you want the reader to have to say, you know what? Corbin Pierce, yeah, I feel like he's finally understood the meaning of friendship, or whatever. That's my theme for the book. And so I want to make sure that as a pacing item for a series, book 1 is, I'm going to pretend that I know any of the journey of Bob's characters. First book is rock bottom. The second book, like he said, is not 7 years later. It's like, okay, I've managed to step inside the rehab clinic. That's the second step. So I just don't do too much.
Gotcha. Awesome. Excellent. I appreciate you all today. I think it's been a really great discussion, actually. And I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Let's go ahead and talk about what's coming up this week for our Go Any Minute. Woo, things to happen. All right. So, this week, Monday night, all times are Eastern time. Monday night live at 7. The final 21 grams of 2025 as Joe Compton sits down with author, filmmaker, publisher Milton J. Davis. That is going to be fantastic. Milton's always a great listen. Tuesday night, doubleheader. One home and one away. There we go. First at 8 p.m., premiere of the final review show of 2025 for Saving a Seat. Hookers, bad actors, and 50 caliber machine guns go ho ho ho. Then at 8:30, the season finale of First Time for Everything with Juliet Rose as she welcomes author, podcaster Kim Langling. Kim, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thursday, premiere at 8 p.m. Page Numbers with Bob Magoo, as he welcomes indie author and owner of Side Street Books, marked by Side Street Book Market. Sorry, Ben Meeks. Friday night, live at 8, we have Saving a Seat season finale as Brian Tan and Joe Compton unveil each of their favorite indie films from 2025, number 12 through number 6. All leading to Sunday, live at noon, here on the Go Indie Now Network, This Year in Indies, as SM Hillman, that's me, unveils his top 5 indie RPGs of 2025, as well, along with Joe Compton, their individual top 5 indie books, and then with Brian Tan, everybody counts down their top 5 indie films. So that is what's coming up this week. Now, it's time for the epilogue. Who wants to go first? Ready? Our panelists will read an excerpt from their work, and we'll put up a QR tag on the screen so that you can pick that work up.
I could go.
Okay, Ben, hold on. Just give me. Let me highlight you.
Yeah, I will say, though, I think the QR code's probably for my latest work. I'm going to be reading a segment from my first series just because that's more having to do with the character development over a series. So just, you can always click through and check out the rest of my stuff.
Just buy them both. Just buy them both.
Yeah, just buy all of them. Three books, new book, all the other books. It's just books. So this is... this is from the third book in The Devil You Know series, Too Many Gods in the Kitchen. I had told John before they took me on about the question I asked myself when I needed to know if I was making the right choice. I had been the villain once. After the rude awakening Lucifer had given me, I never wanted to be that guy again. Whenever I was about to make a dubious decision, I interrogated it. Was I doing it to be a good person? In that case, the choices were take the information I had dug up and give it to Nick so he could protect himself from very bad people, or ignore my discovery and let Nick fend for himself. I obviously chose door A, and I was promptly let go when Angelic IT flagged my account. I squared my jaw. I made my decision, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's from book 3 of your The Devil You Know series, right?
Yep.
What's the name of that book?
Too Many Gods in the Kitchen.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. That's an excellent excerpt. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bob or SG?
I can go. I'm ready. Last time I was on here, totally wasn't ready and didn't do it. So This time I'm ready. Ha! Right. So this is from book 6 of my Jubal County saga. This is that away game I was talking about to kind of set the scene. They have picked up, Howard and his cousin have picked up a crossroads demon as a hitchhiker by mistake. And they are now at a diner. And Howard has been telling a story to this crossroads demon because basically the demon's like, if you can keep me interested, I won't steal your soul. So he's been telling a story from his past to try and keep the demon at bay. All right. So he has just spent a couple paragraphs obsessing over pie. But after thinking on it, I reckoned it was because of telling this story like I had been. I'd come to realize something. I ain't of no account, not really. But back then, back when all that shit was going on with the knocking, I was a real shit back then. The kind of person that current me wouldn't have wanted to spend no time with, which could have made me ashamed at what a bad person I'd been. But as I thought on it, I realized I was feeling good because while I wasn't anywhere near a stand-up guy now, I was a damn sight better than I was back then. And that made me feel good. It can be hard to see how far you've come without something to measure it against. I'd been doing a good job lately of trying to forget my worst deeds, so I needed something like this to cause me to put it all in perspective. There was no getting around it. Anna had been damn good for me. She was, just by being her amazing self, dragging me slowly upwards. Not so much as you'd notice it in the course of a week or a month, but I was consistently improving from who I'd been before I met her. It was enough to bring a tear to my eye if I hadn't been so pie happy at the moment. So yeah, took him 6 books, but he realized, oh hey, maybe I'm not a huge piece of shit.
Nice, very nice, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's another great expert. Thank you for sharing that with us. SG, you ready?
Yeah, mine's a little bit longer. Sorry. So
That's
speaking
okay.
of away games, this is from the final book in the series. And as the final book, I did something a little different where I took a dual perspective. So at the beginning of the series, the main character is a woman who is, she's accused of a murder that she didn't commit. And she is hooked up with this really fastidious, brusque, stern inquisitor is what he's called. And they eventually develop this relationship. She learns to be less worried, less about control, be less alone. And he has a total change. And then this is going to be spoilers. At the end of the third book, they are pulled apart for various reasons. She's literally like kidnapped away from him. And the beginning of the fourth book picks up in his head for the first time in the series, right where that left off. So this is a little bit into that scene. I spring into action, my limbs humming with eagerness now that there's a task to complete. My clothes are in a pile on the floor. I grab them and throw them on. Phone is on the bedside table, that goes in my pocket. Glasses and wallet the same. We never unpack, so I spend no time fussing with the suitcases. Lucky, I suppose. With my effects squared away, my attention turns to the other clothes scattered across the floor. Leggings, t-shirt. All black, all threadbare, well lived in. Soft, so goddamn soft. They ripped her out of bed, out of my arms, naked and terrified. She tried to hide it with a joke. She always does. But she couldn't fool me. What are they doing to her? I snap my teeth so hard my fillings rattle. That train of thought won't help anything, and neither will letting her goddamn clothes undo me. Handling them with caution worthy of a landmine, I extract her phone from her pants pocket and tuck it into my own. Then I stoop to retrieve the other things remaining on the floor. The red chains and articulated bones of my inquisitor's collar shimmer in the fading light. It will deaden the pain, sharpen my wavering focus, and remove inconvenient distractions like empathy and fear. But once I do it, I will lose part of her. Every memory I have will become dull and distant, like I'm watching it on a screen from the back of a theater. I hate it every time it happens, and now that I've actually lost her, the AC kicks on, bringing a scent so familiar it almost knocks me to the ground. It's tilled soil and rose petals and a salty sweetness that's like nothing else I can think of. Nothing but her. Her smell. Her taste. Gone. I don't waste another second before stabbing the collar pins through the lapels of my jacket. The weight of the sigil's protection sinks into my chest. My breathing eases. My heart slows. The scent withers, then disappears. I love her. So much more than I ever thought possible. But right now she needs me strong. She needs me uncaring, unfeeling, ready to do what must be done. She needs a monster. And I swear to God, she will have it.
Awesome, powerful stuff. Three great excerpts today. I really appreciate you guys bringing that. All right, so I want to thank everyone who's watching or will watch later on Memorex for being with us this year. 2025, I think, we've had a lot of great shows, but 2025, I think, sees us stepping up our game. I want to thank all the panelists today. And even the couple who couldn't make it for various reasons. I know they wanted to be here. So, hopefully Tiffany and Lily have great Sundays as well. But no, Ben, Bob, SG, thank you both, or thank you all three for being here. It's been great. Thanks for everybody who's joining us for your comments. Thanks, Joe. And happy holidays, everybody. I just want to say that, it's always time
to go indie
now.
now.
Happy holidays, everyone.